if you didn't know, now you know. M-Pesa is the biggest fintech in Africa. Because now we do know they've crossed that 15 million active users. That's the news that we start with this morning. Of course, we did know that they were headed there. But then since they started expanding M-Pesa reach in Africa, it looks as if they're headed for bigger numbers and their entry into Ethiopia, and I'll be telling you how it's also good news for them this morning, is bound to expand this figure to a larger degree. Alright, let's talk about it then. Because now Safaricom and Vodacom, we do know they acquired M-Pesa brand from the UK parent firm Vodafone PLC to form a joint venture. Now M-Pesa Africa, April last year. I mean, this push again is exactly what has driven this M-Pesa numbers to the 50 million active users that we do know of now. Now, if you look locally, I mean, when you're controlling 99.9 B2B transactions, it does mean indeed that you're the biggest, which is exactly why this data set that we'll show you this morning, again, will show you that M-Pesa in terms of revenue for Safaricom is around 34%. If I'm wrong or right, yes, I'm right, it's 34%. Again, when a hand in a hand with that voice revenue. So now, if we talk about the good news this morning, then we're going to also look at M-Pesa this way. That now the EU, that's the European Commission, that's the EC, sorry, has cleared the joint venture between Safaricom and Vodafone to operate in Ethiopia. All right. According to their statement, they said they did not see that this joint venture poses any threat to fair competition. As really good news for Safaricom, who now are saying they want to institute or employ 1,000 employees by June next year, so that this venture by Safaricom in Ethiopia takes foot. Has the market reacted to that? Let's confirm that by looking at exactly where we were in terms of the top movers yesterday. See whether Safaricom is up and running by that sentiment. Of course, yes. 5 million shares traded. That's 5 million shares, 436,400. Again, coming back to that top spot, because we do know the day before yesterday they were in position 3. Now, this news by the European Commission, and also this news about how Safaricom is also increasing in terms of M-Pesa numbers, is exactly what is pushing this sentiment that we're seeing here. 5,436,400 shares traded as of close of trading yesterday, and the market sentiment, that queue on M-Pesa and the European Commission clearance is exactly what is going to see also that stock rally before we close this week. Now, let's look at what we intimated yesterday, because we're going to talk about it this morning, but I just want us to look at those numbers in totality. Now, we do know that accountants want to change the way that they operate in the country. But how? So let's look at those certified accountants' proposals that were already tabled at the Treasury. And I'm going to have that conversation this morning. So we say and talk about what we do expect to happen should this go through. Now, what we do know is that it failed in 2016. So should it go through this time around, what particular effect is it going to have in terms of the way that we operate in the country, in terms of those advisory services for businesses and especially for individuals and smaller businesses? Let's look at that breakdown this morning, because we've done it for you. Those are the proposed charges that ISFAC or ISFAC, depending on the way that you pronounce it, is proposing. So we divided it into service category and the price that they're proposing. So for small medium enterprises with revenue of less than 5 million looking for an hour audit and assurance services, you would have to pay 50,000 Kenyan bob. That's an hour audit and assurance services for medium-sized revenue of below 100 million, all right, but that audit is above 5 million, you have to pay 200,000 shillings per hour. Wow. All right. Now, audit and assurance, that's the service. Firms with revenue above 100 million, you just have to part with a minimum of 1 million shillings. Now, let's talk about for individuals who are going to apply for the Kenya Revenue Authority KRA PIN, obtaining a tax compliance certificate, filing of return of income with salary, other sources or share of profit, and taking instruction as a tax agent. You have to part with 2,000 shillings. No bargaining. All right, let's cross over to the next category as well in terms of what they're asking for. That is for a partnership. Same one, application for Kenya Revenue Authority KRA PIN, obtaining a tax compliance certificate, filing of return of income with salary and other sources or a share of profit, and taking instruction a tax agent. If you are a partnership, you have to part with a minimum of 7,500 shillings. Same service for a local firm, you have to part with a minimum of 10,000 shillings. Now, in case of an audit, institute members have to be paid 500 shillings per hour. An audit, same service, audit partners responsible for signing off the audit report will have to be paid 14,000 shillings, 500 an hour. All right, advisory on partnerships for small firms, you have to part with 100,000 shillings. Now will come into effect if indeed it goes through, because we do know in a 2016 Competition Authority of Kenya did actually shoot it down because they said it was unfair in terms of competition and also stifling innovation in that particular area. They deemed it not good for business practices. Now they're back at it again, and they're saying that for them this time round, it is just to streamline that particular profession in the country to stop undercutting. Do you agree? This morning, we do have Ishfaq in the house, and we're going to question them so we can sort of have an understanding on exactly where it is that they're coming from with this new one. More reason for you to stick around. Now, let me tell you, or I may ask you, how much are you buying your beef? Because indeed, the dry spell that is looming in the country has led to an oversupply of beef in the market. Now, we're getting at approximately 400 shillings to 420 in July. All right, that's exactly where we are, and it's bound to come down lower as well. A 3-year bull in a Kajiado just goes for 37,600. This is farmers actually running to that advice from the ministry that they should release their extra stock because those pasture lands are bound to diminish as the country gets into that heavy drought season. All right, let's look at another stock this morning, and I want to throw our eyes to how the market closed yesterday in terms of the top gainers list, and we've been seeing two stocks. Let's talk about WPP Scan Group this morning, because if you look at it, we've now have a 9.88% change, and Arubi Business Ventures also comes there with 6.88% change, and these two have been oscillating between position 1 and 2 in terms of the biggest gainers. Fine. So what we're talking about WPP Scan Group, what we do know is they gave us a lows trend of 1.732 billion, but then the market sentiment that we're getting around this area is that the absolving of the CEO sort of changed sentiment of investors on this particular company. Now let's talk about that, because that stock since Tuesday has risen from 3 shillings and 60 cents Tuesday to 4 shillings and 63 cents on exactly what we're talking about here on Friday. But now you can see where we are. The current is at 5 shillings and 56. Ooh, quite a jump from Tuesday. Now, this was announcing also that they're protecting the ability to also pay dividends in the future. We do know that plan that they have, and we're going to talk about it this morning and ask how visible that is in terms of the ability for WPP Scan Group to pay those dividends. So probably that is the cue that the market is reacting to this morning, as we also question the equity stakes for the company as well. All right, let's jump into Exchequer revenue this morning, because we also do know that we have news around this area. Now, the biggest one, yes, is that from 2016 all the way to 2019-2020, indeed, it has been increasing, albeit them missing their target. But then we cross over to 2021, sorry, you will see that indeed the Exchequer, the KRA actually did beat their target for the very first time in 8 years. They gave us 1.669 trillion. Now let's talk about that figure this morning, because yes, indeed, we do have some news on that area as well. Now, under that, Treasury is now announcing that revenue from land and house deals has actually risen 14.25%. That is a year ending June. They're saying that indeed they received 15.51 billion, and you go back a year ago, we're talking about 13.57 billion, sort of talking exactly where we are in terms of that resumption in economic activity in the country now. Now, what we do know, there's a 5% capital gains tax in transfer of property. That's where this revenue is coming from. But then there's a caveat to that. This is one area that the KRA didn't meet their target in that collection, because that was 1.83 billion lower. This 15.51 billion that we're talking about this morning, because they were targeting 17.34 billion. That's how we start this morning. Let's cross over to the newsroom.